If the weakest man in Lawrence City held a fragment of a god, every noble would learn fear. Lurels should have died in the ninth district before anyone remembered his name. Instead, a glowing intelligence system opened a path toward the muddy swamp. A broken, hungry body living in the ninth district of Lawrence City, the worst slum in the Griffin Kingdom. The people look half dead, and his only food is black bread so hard even dogs would not touch it. But it has magic gods, dragons, demons, and creatures from underground that raid the surface and slaughter whole towns. Powerless, poor, invisible. His father Baronels died 10 years ago from an old wound, and the family fell apart after that. The original Lurels was too young, only 15 when the deadline passed. He ended up in the slums. Become a frontier lord. It sounds simple, but over 2,000 years, the kingdom has only pushed 1,000 miles into that land, and the dead frontier lords could fill a mountain. The wilderness has all of them, but his body was so weak he died from a simple fall before he even got started. He told him everything that waits in the wilderness. Duke Lauren approved it. The paper also confirms his inheritance. There was no backing out. In a world full of people with supernatural power, running was not really an option either. Was just staying alive really this hard? It gathered into a glowing panel with words on it. You have become a lord. Lurels jumped to his feet, his heart pounding. After Jim left, Lurels turned his attention to the intelligence system in his mind. Since this was his first time, Lurels got a bonus. Lurels commanded the system to refresh, and 5 entries started appearing on the glowing blue panel. One was about a supply officer named Durr planning to take a bribe and give special frontier supplies to some noble family called Rowe. His family's rank is too low to qualify for those supplies anyway. Dangerous stuff, but nothing Lurels could do about it. Much better. Stall 13 was selling tree saplings labeled as ordinary red leaf trees, but they were actually lava fruit trees. Lava fruits restore magic power and sell for 10 gold coins each. Someone was selling these precious saplings at the price of common wood. The fourth was about Felina Lauren, the eldest daughter of the family that rules this entire city. She's been searching for a magical plant called blue crystal grass, and the system told him exactly where to find it. But if someone that powerful wants it, its value skyrockets. Then the 5th piece of information appeared, and it glowed gold. His heart nearly stopped when Lurels read it. On the morning of July 8th at sunrise, they'd sell it at stall 23 near the market entrance. All Lurels had to do was let a drop of his blood fall on it, and it was about to go on sale at a market stall right here in his district. This system, it was truly terrifying. A fragment of a god's power just sitting there waiting to be sold at a market stall. But the problem was obvious. Lurels could not fight anyone either. Lurels was just an ordinary person in a world full of powerful beings. So Lurels needed a plan. The 3rd piece of information was the easiest to act on. Lurels decided to start there. That was everything the original owner of this body had left. These 3 coins were enough to survive on for maybe 4 months. Lurels walked 20 minutes through the winding alleys to the market. Lurels passed through the small vendors and reached the main section, counting stalls until Lurels found number 13. Lurels noticed a triangle tattoo on his arm, the mark of the Pure Blood Brotherhood, a local gang. Lurels knew Lurels had to be careful and not show what Lurels was really after. They were covered in foul-smelling mud, with just a few red leaves poking out, mixing his real target in with the rest. So Lurels took all of them along with other cheap ones. He spat on the ground as Lurels left, calling him a clueless slum kid. Lurels carried the bundle of muddy saplings through back alleys, slipping out of the 9th district without trouble. The saplings were dirty and seemed worthless. Towering buildings with stained glass windows walls, covered in beautiful plaster carvings praising gods and heroes. It was stunning. Lurels did not stop to admire it. Lurels hired a carriage and headed for the city center. A fountain misted the air at the gate, making a rainbow. It was the most beautiful place Lurels had ever seen. They stopped him immediately. Lurels raised the small tree in his hand. The guard stopped him at the gate. Lurels was holding muddy saplings and wearing patched clothes. Lurels told him Lurels did not have the blue crystal grass with him, but Lurels knew where it was. Lurels kept his voice steady and explained that no one would risk their life just to lie to the princess. If Lurels was wrong, the blame would fall on him, not him. 7 white unicorns pulled a carriage wrapped in blooming roses around the corner. Roses on the walls swayed without any wind. It was like watching a goddess arrive. Then the passenger stepped out. She had skin like jade, flawless features, and deep blue eyes that could hold anyone's gaze. She wore a black robe with faint rose patterns, elegant and noble in every way. The tall knight was trembling with respect. Knights strengthened their bodies. Mages rank from apprentice up through junior intermediate, senior advanced grand crown, and finally transcendent. Most mages never get past intermediate. A grand mage can cast war spells powerful enough to destroy half a city. Lurels greeted her with a proper noble's bow, hand on shoulder, polite nod. She told him she had heard their conversation through the air itself, some kind of magic. Lurels told her Lurels knew where the blue crystal grass grew, and that Lurels had come for the reward. She explained the grass was a key ingredient for a potion she needed, and asked him what Lurels wanted in return. She smiled faintly, studied his patched clothes and calm eyes, and suggested Lurels tell her the location first, promising a reward that would satisfy him. 200 kilometers northwest of Lawrence City, in a valley full of lilies. Holding back would have gained him nothing. Then she asked if Lurels was not afraid she had break her promise. Lurels looked at her, thought about the 6-star golden intelligence glowing in his mind, and answered calmly, Lurels was not afraid. Felina's eyes lit up with curiosity. Surely she would not cheat him over a single plant. But she seemed more interested in the confidence behind his words than the words themselves. He knelt on one knee, eyes burning with devotion, and accepted the command like it was the greatest honor of his life. Then she chanted a spell in a strange language and raised her head toward the sky. A massive shadow dropped from the clouds. Its amber eyes were sharp as arrows. The pressure coming off it made it hard to breathe. Lurels was excited. Creatures that could never exist on Earth. Felina noticed his reaction. That Lurels was looking at her war beast like a kid staring at a toy. The wings kicked up a whirlwind as it rose into the sky and vanished into the clouds. Lurels introduced himself properly, with a noble's greeting. She asked to buy the lava fruit saplings Lurels was carrying. 20 years. Only old noble families with centuries of wealth could afford to wait that long. She took the muddy little plants in her pale hands, and the moment she touched them, they straightened up. She told him to come back tomorrow after Lurels chose his frontier territory, and she'd give him his full reward. Lurels agreed. The guards were stunned. They looked like Lurels had insulted their goddess. Lurels thanked her generously, perhaps a bit too generously, calling her magnanimous and admirable. Molly brought him a small cloth bag. Felina watched him do all of this without a hint of embarrassment and smiled to herself. The 12 lava fruit saplings were worth maybe 30 gold coins on the open market. The supplies Felina promised for later were just a bonus. A smart gambler does not chase every last coin, and right now in just half a day, Lurels had turned 2 pieces of 2-star intelligence into a full purse. Lurels had no way to act on them. July 8th at sunrise, it was coming soon, and Lurels had to be ready. The black market was famous across the entire northern province. The irony was not lost on him. The crowd was thick, and more than half the people had their faces covered like his. Strange minerals, beast fangs, swords, glowing potions, chained half-elf servants, sold right out in the open. Lurels counted stalls as Lurels walked. When Lurels reached that spot, Lurels found only an old one-armed man selling colorful stones. Lurels searched through his 30 or 40 rocks carefully. Right at that moment, 3 men in worn clothes carrying heavy leather backpacks walked up beside him. The one in the middle was small and quiet, with a colorful toy propeller stuck in his backpack. Without a word, they spread a dirty cloth on the ground next to the ore stall and started unpacking. His heart jumped. The system was exactly right. They agreed, just warning him to handle things gently since everything was old. Lurels examined each piece one by one for about 10 minutes before picking up the crystal ball. No one would ever guess that inside it hid the fragment of a god's power, something that could drive the entire world mad. Then Lurels started asking prices. An ivory cup 12? 10 gold coins. Lurels asked for a bulk discount. Lurels countered with 20 silver coins, practically nothing. He said it was robbery. Both sides seemed satisfied. He wished he had tried to sell to him first. Lurels asked if he had part with it. His daughter gave it to him this morning. His daughter. Lurels thanked him and walked out of the black market holding a colorful bamboo dragonfly in one hand and a bag of ancient relics in the other. The swamp god's divine fragment was his. In just 2 days, Lurels had drawn the ultimate card. Completing the 6-star mission had unlocked 3 bonus pieces of information. The first told him how to use the divine fragment. The catch was that Lurels had fallen into a deep sleep for 10 hours during the process, so Lurels had to make sure Lurels was somewhere safe. Among the available lands, there was one called the Muddy Swamp, and hidden inside it was a fragment of Swamp Authority. Authority is the actual power that fills it. Lurels had to claim that territory before any other frontier lord got to it. 200 fighters, all level 6 junior knights. Normally, a single level 6 knight costs 100 gold coins. Lurels had only a few dozen gold coins left. But if Lurels came up short, well, Princess Felina and Lurels were already on good terms. Lurels took a carriage to the Rose House, the finest inn in Lawrence City owned by Felina herself. An ordinary worker earned 6 gold in an entire year. The Rose House sat about a kilometer from the Grand Duke's mansion in the most heavily guarded part of the city. Lurels checked in, went up to the 10th floor, using a dwarf-built elevator, hung a Do Not Disturb sign on the door, locked up and drew the curtains. Only the scratched-up crystal ball mattered now. Then Lurels bit his finger. The moment it touched the ball exploded with light, turning the dim room as day. Then the blood guided that energy into his body. It was so powerful that even his soul felt cleansed. The crystal glowed like a small sun for 5 straight hours, sending out waves of holy, untouchable power. It slipped from his hand and fell onto the bed. No trace of energy remained. Somewhere inside him, his soul was changing into something new. Deep inside his mind, Lurels could feel a whirlpool of deep blue energy, vast and powerful like the sea. Lurels had become a mage, not just a beginner either. A new panel appeared in his mind showing his full attributes. Lurels could now see everything clearly. Touch of the Wetlands could heal living things in a small area, working especially well on swamp creatures. If it worked, the target soul would be marked and become permanently loyal. His potential was listed at 2 stars, meaning Lurels could reach level 9 at most on his own. When Lurels focused his mind, Lurels could sense it at the center of his magic seed, a broken glowing blue sphere, radiating ancient pressure like a god being slowly reborn. Lurels stood up, opened the curtains, and looked out at the sunset painting the sky gold and red. Lurels clenched his fist toward the horizon. The next morning, July 9th, Lurels put on the one thing Lurels had refused to sell: a black noble robe with a golden iris embroidered on it, the crest of the Els family. Wearing a noble crest without permission was a serious crime in this empire. Lurels arrived at the Grand Duke's mansion where the territory selection ceremony would be held. Every one of them wore their family crests proudly. Noble pride ran deep here. 2 nobles in white robes sat beside him, talking excitedly about the Grand Duke and his legendary strength. Then they started talking about Felina, hoping she might appear today. The younger one said that just being noticed by her would be worth everything. What interested him was not her beauty or her title. A goddess should not be stingy. Felina walked in through the main entrance wearing a white gown with silver thread and long black lace gloves. Every pair of eyes followed her. The 2 nobles beside him dropped to one knee, faces red with excitement like they wanted to kiss the ground she walked on. Their eyes met. She smiled faintly and returned the same gesture, a companion's greeting, equal to equal. "Good day, Lord Lurels." Everyone wondered who Lurels was. Their grand knightly bows had not earned them a single glance. They looked like clowns who'd just realized the joke was on them. She was used to being the center of attention. Even someone as extraordinary as her could not shake his focus anymore. Her voice started soft, grew powerful, talking about the Empire's 2,000-year history, about ancestors who bled for its glory. She called them heroes. Lurels understood the feeling better than most. Then she moved to the real business. It showed the wilderness surrounding Lawrence City, built from over 1,000 years of exploration. Everything else was open, half-a-town icons. In 1,000 years, only about 100 territories had been successfully established. That alone told you everything about the survival rate of frontier lords. A few of those settlements had grown to over 200,000 people. And Lawrence City itself, the greatest city in the north, had been founded 1,000 years ago by the first frontier lord, the original Duke of Lauren, Abisofitz. Felina told everyone to begin choosing. "Your Highness, Lurels have already made his choice." Felina's eyes flickered with curiosity. Lurels pointed at the map. People could not believe it. Felina warned him herself. Lurels answered quietly, "If no one has done it, then Lurels will be the first." The room went still. Whatever they thought of his chances, the words themselves struck a nerve. "Going where no one else dared? Lord Lurels, your courage is admirable." She could not figure out where a poor fallen noble had found this kind of confidence. Hidden in that swamp was a fragment of divine authority. The swamp was not a death trap for him. Lurels did not stay long after choosing his territory. Lurels had plenty to do, but as Lurels was leaving the hall, Felina's blonde maid Jasmine stopped him and asked him to follow her to a side room. Lurels waited a few minutes before she walked in. Graceful as always, her long hair floating behind her. Lurels told her they were friends, and that once Lurels built his territory, Lurels had pay her back double. Then she got to the point. It turned out to be an ingredient she needed for her promotion from level 16 to level 17. Lurels told her they were even. She smiled and said Lurels could not count things that simply. Jasmine handed him a list. Food farming tools. Ironware, 30 wagons worth of goods, but the real treasure was at the bottom. The armor alone was worth a fortune. That was 4,000 gold coins total. Lurels looked at her and told her Lurels would remember her kindness. Then let's get to know each other again. Greetings, Felina Lauren. Calling the princess by her first name was unheard of. Something softened in her eyes, and she returned the greeting the same way. Lurels was Felina Lauren. Inside sat a chubby gray insect munching on green leaves. She called it a swamp mud insect, something she had found in ancient ruins. But it had been sleeping in those ruins for too long, and even after feeding it many magical plants, she could not restore its power. She gave it to him as a symbol of their friendship. This little thing could hunt dragons only in a fantasy world. His swamp divinity core controlled swamp life. Lurels thanked her, then reached into his chest and pulled out something of his own. Crooked, childish a toy his daughter had made for him. After everything the princess had given him, this was his gift in return. Your gift, Lurels accepted? She stored it carefully, then pressed 3 fingers to her forehead and lifted her hand toward the sky. Her eyes were warm but serious as she looked at him. Come back alive from the wilderness, his friend. After leaving Felina, Lurels got into a carriage and headed for the slave market. When Lurels had looked at Felina earlier, a status panel had appeared in his mind showing her level. Her potential was hidden behind question marks too far above him to read. That was incredibly useful. The slave market was about an hour away in District 22, the biggest in the entire north. It was massive, operating day and night. The walls were covered in stone carvings. Rose-shaped stained glass windows cast dim-colored light inside. On both sides of the street, slave traders displayed rows of steel cages stacked on top of each other. Orcs, goblins, half-elves, snake people, minotaurs, barbarians. The most common were orcs, strong, brutal, and popular with buyers. Lurels found the Dragonfang Trading Guild quickly. Anyone who looked at it could instantly understand the words even if they could not read. The guild master, a cheerful, chubby merchant named Macon, greeted him warmly. Lurels cut straight to the point and asked about swamp creatures. All decent for swamp life, but none were what Lurels needed. He thought about it and said no. No lizard folk. Was the system's information wrong? Lurels caught the words wetland lizardmen and rebelled again. He muttered about trying to sell them to the arena, but even the arena had refused. Lurels spoke up immediately. What level were they? He said they were all level 6 junior knights, but extremely fierce. Lurels appreciated his honesty. Lurels told him maybe the lizard folk were not as bad as he thought. What Lurels did not know was that a week ago there had been 3 squads. The lizard folk had been killing each other, or their handlers, and numbers were dropping fast. Better to sell them quickly, he said, before there was only 1 squad left. It was wider than the front, filled with iron cages stacked 3 layers high. They maintained this area well. Inside were his targets, wetland lizard folk. Thick scales covered their bodies, green and gray-brown natural camouflage for swamp life. Their lizard heads had amber eyes full of fury, and when they opened their mouths, their teeth looked like razors. Level 6. Junior Knights 1-star potential. Meaning they had already hit their natural ceiling. Fearless of pain, attacking without stopping. They screamed curses in their lizard language, charged the bars, and bit the iron with screeching sounds. They showed zero fear. A week ago, there had been over 340 of them. The Ring of Enslavement, a magic device that transfers pain directly to the soul, normally broke any slave's will. But these lizard folk could. Over 100 lizard folk had died that way already. For a slave trader, that was a nightmare. A force of killing machines that feared neither pain nor death. And with his swamp divinity core, Lurels could do exactly that. His face twitched, but he could see Lurels was not desperate. He gritted his teeth and agreed. Lurels only had 1,000 gold coins on him. Lurels asked to pay 1,000 now and the rest in 3 days. And if not, well, Felina and Lurels were practically old friends by now. Before Macon could answer, 2 lizard folk went berserk in their cages. Then 2 explosions. Blood everywhere. They had resisted the soul-tearing pain until the very end. He turned to him, trying to apologize, but before he could finish, another explosion. The blood smell was overwhelming. 1,000 gold coins. Get them out of here. He never wanted to see these creatures again. The sight of exploding heads and the thick smell of blood made his heart race. Lurels forced himself to breathe slowly and push the feeling down. Scenes like this would become normal soon enough. He took it and was about to check the amount when he noticed something. His eyes went wide. No one in the city would dare copy it. Lurels told him plainly that the coins were a gift from the princess and that most frontier lords were not wealthy. His respect went up another notch when a servant confirmed the gold was genuine. The rings drew energy from the slaves themselves, so they had work as long as the slaves were alive. Lurels told him to deliver the lizard folk to the Rose House. These creatures were like ticking bombs. The lizard folk were restless, screaming curses in their harsh language eyes, burning with defiance even through shackles and slave rings. Lurels reached into the swamp divinity core inside his soul and released divine might, the lingering pressure of the swamp god itself. To anyone else in the room it sounded ordinary. It was their god looking down at them. These creatures had endured torture, starvation, and soul-tearing pain from the slave rings without breaking. This was not pain. The pressure came from the source of what they were. Their bodies were fierce, but their souls were already worn thin. Their ferocity melted into trembling submission. Lurels felt his mental power spread outward, pressing a mark into each of their souls. Their hostility dissolved into obedience and something even stronger. Maken stood behind him, frozen. These were the same creatures that had resisted every form of torture his people could devise. And Lurels had silenced them with 2 words: cooperate with the transport. The last traces of restlessness vanished. 2 squads of level 9 armored knights arrived to escort the lizard folk. The lizard folk did not resist. He tested it on a few, and they just stood there, calm and obedient, as if the madness and violence of the past week had never happened. He did not understand how Lurels had done it. All that mattered was that his first army was ready, and they were heading to the Rose House. The Dragon Fong Guild would give him their best prices. Jasmine was waiting at the door when Lurels arrived. Just as they were talking, the transport carriage pulled up and the lizard folk climbed out. The guards at the door shivered just looking at them. Jasmine asked if Lurels had bought them as guards, though in his mind they were much more than that. She asked when Lurels planned to leave for his territory. After that, imperial law treats you as a deserter. She nodded and led him and the lizard folk to the side courtyard where the supplies were stored. Horses grazed near the wagons, and on the ground sat a small mountain of armor gleaming with cold metallic light. 1-star quality, made from refined steel with dwarven techniques, designed to fit most humanoid beings under 2 meters tall. 200 sets total. Everyone put on the armor. At about 1.70 meters, they fit the armor perfectly. Amber eyes glowing above dark metal-sharp swords in their clawed hands, thick tails poking through specially made openings in the back. 200 fully armed level 6 junior knights stood before him in formation. Now Lurels had divine power, an army, 30 wagons of supplies, and 1,000 gold coins. She had duties to attend to. As the princess's personal attendant, she did not need the money. She mentioned the lizard folk and how strangely obedient they were. Felina was not surprised. Jasmine asked if that did not strike her as strange. That a man who could walk out of the slums, look a princess in the eye without flinching, and call her a friend to her face was never going to be ordinary. After Jasmine left, Lurels asked the lizard folk who their leader was. He stepped forward, knelt on one knee, and spoke in rough but understandable common language. Lurels told him to keep everyone in line while they stayed in the city a few more days. Every word Lurels spoke was law to them. In this world, there was a rare chance during leveling up to undergo a hero transformation, and none of his lizard folk had it. Lurels called the Rose House staff to bring good food for the lizard folk and went back to his room alone. In just a few days, Lurels had chosen his territory. Lurels had bought 200 level 6 warriors for 1,000 gold coins. Lurels had over 70 gold coins, left 30 wagons of supplies, 200 sets of armor in the swamp divinity core, merged with his soul. That night, Lurels waited for midnight. July 10th, the intelligence system was ready to refresh. 5 new pieces of information appeared. A town would be attacked by harpies tomorrow. The second was also 1-star, but interesting. She hid in rose bushes and survived. That explained why everything around her involved roses, her estate, her inn, even her magic. At the black market stall 24, the one-armed old man's stall, right next to where Lurels had bought the divine fragment. Most of its energy was drained, but it was still powerful. No other lizard man could survive the transformation. The fourth was also 2 stars. Was selling what they thought was ordinary dried earth dragon, but it was actually from a real adult dragon. Soaking it in blood would restore the dragon's scent. For a trip of over 1,000 kilometers through hostile territory, this was priceless. In 20 days, a riot would break out 500 kilometers into the wilderness. If Lurels did not leave for his territory before July 15th, the chaos would block his path and delay him by 7 months. If Lurels missed it, someone or something else would claim it first. 5 days to prepare, then leave. but the 5 pieces together gave him a clear plan. Lurels lay on the bed, turning over each piece of information in his mind, planning tomorrow's moves. Early on July 10th, Lurels went to the slave market before sunrise. Lurels found the Gray Mist Trading House in District 5, a small shop that did not sell slaves, but everything related to them. On a shelf, Lurels spotted bunches of dry droppings. His status panel confirmed it. Soaking it in blood would reactivate the dragon's aura, scaring away any creature during wilderness travel. Lurels cut him off. They settled on 20 silver coins for the whole pile. He thought he had pulled off a brilliant sale of worthless junk. The next day, July 11th, Lurels went back to the black market. The fool who'd spent 20 gold on Tomb Raider items a few days ago, he brightened up, started his pitch. Lurels ignored his sales talk and quietly searched through his auras. What Lurels wanted was the dark stone he kept rubbing in his hand, the one he used to look impressive while sitting at his stall. An ancient beast crystal core. Lurels asked to see it. He claimed it contained a rare metal called silver and started at 50 gold coins. He chased after him. Lurels pulled out 10 silver coins and held them in his open palm without saying a word. Before he even finished the sentence, the coins vanished from his hand and the stone was shoved into it. Meanwhile, Lurels was walking away with the key to creating his first hero unit. Using information to build wealth quietly felt incredible. The 100 slave craftsmen Felina had promised had arrived. Jasmine explained they were swamp dwellers, a race that preferred damp places and was naturally gifted at building and crafting. Felina had brought them from another city specifically for him. Level 4. 1-star potential with a racial talent called Craftsman's Heart that gave them extra creativity and skill in construction and tool-making. Jasmine also handed him a scroll, a magic map that would guide him through the wilderness to his territory. Clearly far better. Mountains, rivers, trees all flowing. The map's quality told him how much this gift was worth. Jasmine wished him a glorious return, placed her hand on her chest, bowed and left without looking back. An elderly one with curly hair and a hunched back stepped forward, bowed deeply, and introduced himself as Bane. He was a hero unit. With a hero talent called construction, he could plan large-scale structures, save building costs, and strengthen durability. A hero perfectly suited for building a territory. He accepted humbly. Over a 100 swamp dweller craftsman and 200 armored wetland lizard folk for an expansion lord. 200 level 6 knights alone would normally cost 40,000 gold coins. Lurels told Bane to inspect all the supplies, figure out what they still needed, and buy everything today. He was excited but nervous, especially when he had to walk past the lizard folk. Their swords were only for enemies. The supplies were extraordinary. Food, clothing, tools, all packed into 30 large wagons. Half a pound could keep a person full for 5 days. With everything confirmed, Lurels turned to the tallest, strongest figure among the lizard folk. The ancient beast crystal core was in his pocket. Bringing Haggis, the fierce lizard man, into the room, Lurels took out a black mineral he bought from the black market. Although most of it has faded over time, but it can still cause your bloodline to transform. The wetland lizardman's heart trembled. His amber eyes shone with intense madness, offering his soul to you. Becoming a hero is the lifelong dream of most creatures. Lurels nods slowly. Haggis does not hesitate. Among the broken stones, a small object about the size of a thumb appears, glowing faintly with a red light. Eat it to complete your transformation. In the next moment, his body suddenly erupts with a fierce, brutal aura. His body softens and he collapses to the ground, growling like a beast. It looks as if he's enduring a terrible, torturous pain. Lurels glances at the information again at the 20-second stall selling minerals at the black market entrance. Although most of its energy is faded, it was still extraordinary. While other lizard men cannot withstand the pain of transformation. Without hardship, no one could taste the sweetest fruit. This is a life nearly immune to pain, one that even the ring of servitude cannot suppress. During the ongoing transformation, Haggis's body visibly grows larger. Even trembling on the ground, he still looks fierce and brutal. He slowly stands up. His solid muscles are so prominent that even the armor could not hide them. Its amber eyes looked aggressive. Ordinary armor could not stop its sharpness. His lord, from now on, Lurels, will become your weapon, cutting through all obstacles for you. Haggis felt a surge of power inside him. This was a scene he often dreamed about during many nights. Greatness needs no words. This was truly his first hero. He looked at the kneeling wetland lizard hero in front of him and thought about the new attribute panel appearing in his mind. Short underwater breathing. It can quickly recover by consuming energy, and even broken limbs can grow back. Scales 2 stars. Ferocity 2 stars. Fearless of pain and fighting relentlessly. 2 stars. Equipment none. A fierce swamp creature. After the transformation, his strength had greatly increased. His original level 6 also increased to 7. After being injured, one can use their energy and blood to recover and even regrow lost limbs. In battle, the already fierce and pain-tolerant lizardmen gain the ability to recover quickly. It felt like a young fantasy version of the Hulk. You must become a hero to awaken it. It was a sign of high combat power. However, the mage from the start, they already have magic power. The Night Path requires hero status to gain certain powers, but apprentice mages can get them early. Overall, after becoming a hero, Haggis's individual combat ability skyrocketed. This is what a hero unit can do. Heroes like Bane who focus on everyday skills will only be followers. Get up, go back, and control your companions. Haggis took a deep breath and lowered his head. As Haggis left the room, the intelligence system quietly revealed new information. There is a magical plant called white flower longleaf grass growing in the muddy swamp. After Haggis consumes it, his potential will increase to 3 stars. There was more information. A 2-star hero is pretty good, but the level cap is only 9. The most obvious benefit is that the level cap increases to 12. It feels great. At this moment, Haggis strides back to the side yard of the Rose House. After sensing carefully, they become restless. After confirming with Haggis, they are even more shocked. No one understood what the Lord of Domination had given Haggis. Long live the God of Swamps. Bane sees this scene and looks more and more surprised. He never expected that a hero could be granted as a reward. After resting for a night on July 12th, Lurels gathers his army early in the morning and organizes supplies. Has the swamp people catch up with the 30 wagons loaded with goods? The army is assembled and enters the wilderness. His mood is very excited right now. The thick blue stone pavement is over 150 meters wide, with 8 lanes for carriages on each side, leaving enough space for pedestrians. Just transporting these blue stones into the city is an enormous and impressive project. These houses are old and exquisite, varying in height, interlocking like teeth. At the corner of the cross street stands a clock tower over 20 meters tall. At exactly 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock, the city is filled with the loud chimes of the clock. The Lauren family took 1,000 years to build this magnificent city, a shining jewel. Lurels looks back. They are over 100 meters high. On the walls stand various heavy siege weapons, catapults, heavy crossbows, arrow towers, countless and densely packed, their swords crossing in midair. These 2 statues have been rebuilt over 10 times after wars. They are almost symbols of Lawrence City. In the sky, hundreds of imperial emblems, griffins with wings spanning over 10 meters, soar and glide. With 10 or even 100 times more in number if needed, Lurels takes a deep look at this grand city, feeling a surge of pride. Without hesitation, he waves his hand, signaling the army to speed up. The lush green wheat fields sway gently in the breeze, creating a scene of endless beauty. In this magical world filled with magic, even timid craftsmen like swamp dwellers are much stronger than humans on Earth. Starting early in the morning, they stopped for a rest at a roadside well at noon. This saves them a lot of trouble. Guards patrol every day, and if they find any threats, they clear them immediately. Washing his face with clean water, Lurels felt his tiredness fade. At sunset, they traveled another 40 kilometers before setting up camp. This also gave Lurels a new understanding of the strength of ordinary people in this fantasy world. After arriving at a small town, the caravan stopped to rest. The surface turned into uneven, muddy paths, and their speed slowed down. Every few days, griffin patrols come to check the area. However, some wild monsters still exist in small numbers. It is fully under Lawrence City's control, and officials regularly send people to build villages and cultivate the land. Every 2 weeks, Lawrence City conducts patrols. This is also the area where most landowners choose to develop their territories. Because it is within Lawrence City's influence but not directly threatened by wilderness dangers, it is considered very safe. Lawrence City keeps an eye on this area. Therefore, the level of danger began to rise sharply. Without development, Lawrence City only sends out the Griffin Corps to patrol occasionally to prevent large-scale enemy gatherings in the wild. Orcs, barbarians, snake people, gray dwarves, and undead. Their territories vary in size. They possess strength comparable to Lawrence City. Entering the control zone 100 kilometers away, Lurels ordered Bane to take out some dried dragon dung and place it in a clay basin. Master, if dragon dung is stored too long, it will lose its smell, and its effectiveness will decrease greatly. When he checked the supplies earlier, he asked Lurels who said everything was ready, so he did not check carefully. This journey will become much more difficult. No need to worry. Haggis, add blood to it, he said, waving his hand. He grabbed a strong fat rooster weighing over 10 pounds from a cart. Blood splattered as the rooster's wings flapped wildly, soaking the clay basin. Within a few breaths, the surrounding magic seemed to be drawn into a black hole pouring into the dung. Everyone felt a strange chill down their spines. Dragon dumb. His eyes changed again. The dragon is the top predator in this world. Anyone associated with the dragon, even those with mixed bloodlines, possesses strong power. No one wants to get close to the dragon's might. Lurels nodded slightly but said nothing more. The dragon's presence can be felt up to 2 or 3 kilometers away. This greatly improves the safety of the convoy. They are now over 200 kilometers from Lawrence City, finally entering the wilderness. After dinner, Lurels did not sleep right away but waited quietly until late at night. The information system in his mind quietly displayed new data. The system asked if he wanted to refresh. It was time for the third information refresh. 20 kilometers ahead in a forest of red leaves, you will encounter an ambush by 3 small ground elf squads. The chief administrative officer of Lawrence Duke's residence is a comrade of your father with a deep friendship between them. Felina broke through to level 17 a day ago. She is now collecting more types of rose flowers, which are her next opportunity for advancement. Traveling along the road for 2 days by noon on the 17th, a flock of man-eating crows will pass overhead, attracting level 13 monsters, stormbirds. 2 stars. Thieves will appear in your area. You must hide dragon droppings and rest for 3 hours to avoid them. There are 5 pieces of intelligence. Lurel's eyes narrow as he carefully examines the information. Earth gnomes are a larger, more wild branch of the gnome race. Even if they succeed in an attack, they are unlikely to cause much damage. The chief officer of the Lord Land's estate is a former comrade of the protagonist's father. It seems that on the next trip back to Lawn City, he should visit this person. The third piece of intelligence has Felina advanced again. The youngest Grand Mage of the Griffin Empire. Even if he had some advantages, his talent is clear. His next breakthrough will be to level 18, only 24 years old. The intelligence about collecting more rose flowers to advance is also interesting. He should check if there were roses in the wilderness and send them back to her before she fully develops. The fourth and fifth pieces of intelligence are warnings about danger. No need to say they are all dangerous enemies. After reviewing the information twice, Lurels feels more confident. The next morning, the lizard man guard wakes him and he packs up to set out again. A small, bright red leaf floats in the wind like a flickering flame. But Lurel's eyes sharpened. There are goblins hiding in the red leaf forest. The wetland lizard men in armor immediately became excited upon hearing this. But deep inside, they are still bloodthirsty and savage hunters. A small team of 10 100 soldiers, 1,000 troops, and a 10,000 army. As a lord, expanding into the wilderness, bloodshed and killing will be the main themes for a long time. He was just a fallen noble descendant struggling in the slums. He needs to adapt to this crazy world, and he must let this battle be the beginning. Entering the red leaf forest, the wetland lizard men immediately become alert. Their noses twitch and they look sharply in one direction. The wetland lizard man's sense of smell may not be as sharp as a hound's, but it is definitely much better than humans. Haggis Lurels entrusts you with leading the fight. Divine power is not a combat skill. It releases a burst of life energy over a 3 by 3 meter area, speeding up healing, restoring up to 20% of health, and up to 30% for swamp creatures. The Earth Elementals have only 3 squads, but for this first battle, he does not want any surprises. These beings wearing cold armor and with fierce looks began their hunt. On a small hill, dozens of figures with green skin were crawling. A triangular nose with a hooked tip, large blue eyes, and a sturdy build with most over 1.75 meters tall. It was a big one, brave and daring, overly confident and proud. Skill strong. Attack 1 star, raises weapon high with both hands to unleash full strength, dealing 20% more damage with a chance to cause stun and paralysis. These disgusting, foul-smelling beings also dare to play this game thinking of sneaking up on them. Haggis clenched his steel dagger. With a low roar, the 9 squads of marshland lizard men charged like arrows. They saw fierce lizard man warriors rushing toward them. Instead, they roared loudly and counterattacked. Seeing the enemies not retreating but advancing, Haggis was furious. At the front, a ground goblin also roared and swung a wooden club. The steel blade with terrifying force directly cut through the wooden stick, astonishing the earth's spirit. Bones shattered, crimson blood scattered everywhere. Haggis felt a bit of anger release inside. The ruler was still watching from behind. The steel blades swung, needing no special tactics or hero's energy, just raw violence, cutting down the Earth's spirits one after another. If they delayed any longer, these Earth spirits would be gone. Even if they hit the lizard soldiers with wooden sticks, it only made a clanging sound. It was a one-sided slaughter. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. The strong smell of blood, broken limbs and guts, glaring blood-crimson grass and trees. Compared to the scene of wetland lizards blowing up heads in the slave yard, this was a 100 times more intense. His gaze was firm as he stepped into the bloody chaos. "Good job, Haggis." He turned his head to look at the horrifying battlefield and the scattered bodies. This is just the beginning. Haggis felt an inexplicable change happening to his ruler. A not-so-intense battle came to an end, marking the start of the wilderness exploration. However, the goblin, being a poor creature, still struggled to survive in the wilderness with little to gain. They regrouped. This was to prevent any unexpected surprises. Even deep in the wilderness, they had not been ambushed by monsters. They kept moving forward. At dawn, the convoy set out and Lurels ordered 3 soaked portions of dragon droppings. Each portion of dragon droppings could emit dragon's might for 5 days before quickly fading. The overwhelming dragon's might from the 4 portions made the naturally timid swamp dwellers tremble. They kept glancing back at the clay basin behind them. Dragons, being at the top of the food chain, had a terrifying presence that deeply affected ordinary creature spirits. He could only suppress his doubts and proceed with fear. Lurels looked up, his heart pounding. They were about half an arm long, all black with long beaks. The convoy immediately grew tense. The wetland lizard men drew their steel knives, their eyes fierce, ready for a bloody fight. The dark tide of sky monsters, when approaching within a kilometer of the convoy, suddenly seemed to hit an invisible mountain. They narrowly avoided the convoy again. In an instant, dozens of crows covered in black smoke fell from the sky. It seemed like the beginning of a grand show. Within the dark tide, flashes of lightning and thunder constantly lit up the sky. Lurels focused intently. They were ruthlessly hunting these level 5 creatures. There were over 100 of them. This was the true wilderness. The storm thunderbirds controlled lightning, casually killing crows, filling the air with a smell of burnt feathers. Even if the target was not the crows, the shock waves from the thunderbirds could still impact the convoy. After a few hunts, the frightened crows sped up. Early in the morning, Lurels was a bit puzzled why he had ordered several times more giant dragon dung bang. His gaze on Lurels was full of admiration. In the wilderness, this was almost like a divine gift. In fact, it greatly boosted his confidence about the future. They traveled more than 10 miles before returning to normal pace. Thanks to the powerful horses in this fantasy world, like small trucks, they could pull the carts forcefully. Long journeys are boring and dull. No one understood why they stopped so early today. Everyone tried to breathe quietly. The shaking was not strong, but they were only 2 or 3 kilometers away. Although they did not know who was coming, having a large cavalry force in the wilderness was definitely dangerous. The wilderness bandits are a major threat. Where they pass, only blood and dead bodies remain. They are wild, violent, and love to raid. A single attack by bandits can wipe out a newly arrived lord. After surviving this crisis, Lurels relaxed a little. During the day they traveled. That was the routine of traveling, so they had to be very careful. Traveling through the wilderness is full of unknown dangers. Just traveling takes a lot of effort. But for Bane, it became somewhat boring. The dragon droppings kept most creatures away. Then waves of danger quietly and silently passed by without incident. Perhaps he even has the power to see the future. Lurel's status in his heart was rising rapidly. Following the strong is the natural instinct of all beings in Noah world. Not only him, but all swamp dwellers and marsh lizard men are the same. They traveled by day and rested at night. Seeing the shining 6-pointed star pattern so close, Lurel's mood grew excited. Clearing land, building a city, gathering power. Speed up! Hearing this, everyone's morale soared. As the sun gradually sank below the horizon, but the heat remained intense, Lurel's spirits lifted. At the end of his sight, a curved rainbow with 7 colors hung in the sky, and the sunset's glow was as fiery, colorful as flames. He could also see the steam rising from the high temperature. Muddy swamp. Finally, they've arrived. This was where they would live from now on. Hail to the goddess of beauty. The swamp dweller danced happily, and the wetland lizard men were also very eager. They finally reached their destination safely. Lurels was also very excited. This is his territory. At that moment, the swamp god spirit within the seed of magic in his mind suddenly shone with a faint glow. Feeling that deep within the land, something he longed for was sleeping. Master Bane interrupted his thoughts with a slightly excited tone. There was plenty of moisture here. The swamp they lived in before dried up because the water vein vanished, forcing them to leave, which led to their capture. There is great potential ahead. Hopefully, so everyone rest for the night, and tomorrow they will explore the swamp further. Most importantly, today is August 4th early morning, which is another time for intelligence updates. He relied on this information to avoid several monster attacks that could have destroyed his convoy. It seemed smooth sailing, but only he knew how dangerous the past half-month had been. After dinner, Lurels stepped out of the tent. The hot air gradually cooled and a refreshing breeze blew in. Lurels saw Haggis, who had just finished setting up the night watch. Haggis hesitated with excitement and carefully sat down. Haggis, Lurels haven't asked before. Haggis paused a bit sad in his eyes. Lurels led his people to wander in the wilderness. The word home felt unfamiliar to him. Stronger ones claim territory and even build cities. After speaking, Haggis hesitated again. His eyes lit up with hope. Lurels gave them a sense of purpose, letting them know who they fight for and why. Hearing the heartfelt words of this lizard hero, Lurels felt a bit moved. He reached out and patted Haggis on the shoulder. Haggis was stunned, wanting to say something but unsure what. It seemed that everything was understood without words. When the date changed from August 4th to August 5th, the information system interface in Lurels' mind updated again. Can refresh data. His spirit lifted and his eyes showed excitement and anticipation. In the center of the swamp, there is a flat area with a diameter of 2 kilometers, which is the best place to build a territory. Whenever you encounter any fork, always go left. Activating the Swamp Authority will cause a strong magical energy fluctuation. 2 stars. There is a starry sky vine which is stronger than steel ropes and lightweight, making it very suitable for building houses in the swamp. About 30 kilometers north of the central area, there is a group of decayed centaurs. There are more than 500 of them. Beneath the territory occupied by the decayed centaurs, a 1-star magic plant called Blue Heart Mud Fruit grows. Lurels immediately felt excited. And there are even 2 pieces of 3-star information. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and started reading from the first piece of information. The swamp center has a 2 kilometers diameter open space. It also provides a path to the swamp center. Very good. He can only note this down for now and operate after obtaining the authority. The starry skyvine. Swamp terrain is special. Now he has a material for building the territory. He must get it. It is about the group of decayed centaurs living 30 kilometers north of the central area. They are all mid-level knights. At this moment, the most powerful being in his hands, the Haggis, is only at level 7. That was unrealistic unless it was a top-tier expert like Felina at level 17. The last piece of information is very meaningful. This magical plant has memory and is a rare food that can be eaten directly as a main meal. It also produces a lot maturing in just 2 months. It has always been controlled by wealthy nobles. This is a strategic treasure related to the survival and future growth of the territory. It was a chosen plant. But to obtain this highly potential magical plant, Lurels first need to deal with the threat of the decayed half-humans. August 5th early morning. The muddy water, rotting corpses, weeds, moss, and lone trees match the typical swamp image described by bards. The air is filled with the smell of rotten mud and moss, covers the dried, decayed wood, giving it a thick green coat. Through the fog, a few sparse giant trees can be seen, but it was not a forest. It was also a dangerous and deadly place. One wrong step, and you could be swallowed by the muddy water. Ordinary people find it difficult to walk through here. Lurels takes a deep breath and orders he to lead 5 squads of marsh lizard men to scout ahead and watch for danger. The road is narrow and the convoy inevitably becomes longer. After entering, their spirits and energy noticeably increase. Lurels feels the same, his eyes shining like a galaxy. They move along the winding swamp trail. As they go deeper into the swamp, tall trees start to appear. The swampy water pools emit a faint rotten smell. The swamp is filled with many dangers, even more than swamp monsters, poisonous insects and snakes that are everywhere and fiercely toxic. After about 20 minutes of walking, a long howl suddenly echoes ahead. Warning enemies approaching, he quickly orders the team to stop moving. Turning 2 corners, their view opens up. A few large trees stand alone in the middle of the wetland, their green leaves hazy, shouting fiercely as they fight off monsters pouring out from a small hill about 10 meters high covered in weeds behind them. It has a pointed mouth with 2 sharp teeth showing and 4 long whiskers almost curling to the back of its head. Its body is like a bigger version of a mouse, but it walks upright. Kella Mouseman, level 3, potential 1-star race talent. Skill biting. Uses sharp teeth to bite enemies, causing piercing damage. Beware of their sharp teeth. Lurel's eyes narrow slightly. In this moment, the gathered number outside has already exceeded 4 squads and more keep coming out. Even though the wetland lizard men are much stronger, the overwhelming number makes them like rocks hit by waves ready to be overwhelmed at any moment. Join up with Haggis. The wetland lizard men soldiers do not hesitate. They swing their blades slicing through. Blood sprays wildly, but the fierce mouse men show no sign of retreat. They split into two groups rushing toward two squads. Their sharp teeth are like daggers stabbing through armor and tearing scales. The first 10 or so wetland lizard men are hit first. You can hear the crisp sound of bones breaking. But what's chilling is that even after decapitation, the fierce mouse heads still cling tightly to their bodies, not letting go. The terrifying biting strength caused many warriors' arms to be bitten through. They growled low and charged into the chaos. At this moment, there were about 15 squads of wetland lizard men on the battlefield. A sea of rats formed in the swamp. The enemy was only about 1.2 meters tall, with average strength and almost no defense. Even a one-star armor could be dented by their bites. Although each bite cost a life, there were too many of them. These Ratman men did not seem to fear death at all. The Kurd Ratman were in a frenzy, and the divine residual power skill could not control such a state of life. If he could not control them, then he would slaughter them all. A pale blue light crossed space and entered the bodies of several severely wounded wetland lizard men warriors in front. Cast a life force energy covering a 3 by 3 meters area, speeding up healing, restoring up to 20% of health. He did not have harmful skills, but possessed powerful healing magic. After a few rounds of healing, the injured wetland lizard men warriors became even more fierce. In the most brutal way, they fought against the enemy, turning the battlefield into a meat grinder. Face to face. Combat, every strike. Piercing to the bone, flesh and blood flying, blood splattering. At this moment in the midst of the battlefield atmosphere, no one felt fear anymore. The marshes with rolling water plants were now stained bright red. Haggis, as a hero unit, was unleashing an unimaginable fighting power. Vitality with over 1,000 points of health. He almost single-handedly blocked the charge of the Kella Rat people from one direction. The hero's strength was now fully displayed. It was truly an example of many ants killing an elephant. The casualties and fallen enemies were countless. The tactic of sacrificing many to wound many was suppressed to the limit. The enemy's brutal sacrifices did not achieve the expected results. Finally, after another attack was shattered by steel blades, a sharp squeak of a rat echoed from the hill behind. Severed limbs. Lurels stood on the battlefield, calmly watching this horrifying scene, slowly exhaling. Iron and blood and slaughter were forging a lord fit for survival in the wilderness. You commanded your army to kill 3,692 Kellerats, achieved a glorious victory. The swamp god possesses the ability to refine the essence of life energy. You can now increase your subordinate's potential limit to 2 stars, but only if you control the swamp's authority. Unexpectedly, there was still a surprise. You can use divine power to extract the essence of life, which can break potential limits. What he needed most was military strength, and the only controllable force in your hand is the wetland lizard men. Turning to look at the warrior beside him, soaked in blood and wearing black armor filled with a savage and brutal aura, who had just finished fighting, immediately moved into action. Master, this is a hybrid they just found. There was no need to be friendly to enemies. Where are you from? Great Queen, they'll feed you all to the rat pups. Surface dwellers, you are seeking death. Haggis' eyes darkened sharply, and he clenched his hand tighter around the rat's neck. Haggis' eyes darkened sharply, and he clenched his hand tighter around the rat. Dark Mountain Range surface dwellers. The Dark Mountain Range is a famous mountain range in the underground world. Lurel's mind turned quickly, and he spoke softly. Kella creatures? Do you really think you can threaten the surface? Wait and see. This place will become the Kakalo clan's paradise. As he finished speaking, his breathing grew rapid. Haggis looked grim and suddenly twisted his body. He was actually threatened by this damn sewer rat creature. Find some survivors and ask them questions. He found 4 more badly injured Kella rat creatures. What they said was true. But unlike what the first rat had said, the Kakalo clan has not yet reached out to the surface. They haven't sent the message back yet, and it took them 7 days to reach the underground route. The Kakalo clan is indeed powerful. Even if they kill this red dragon, it will take time to recover. After confirming this information, Lurels felt relieved. No matter how great the potential, it takes time to realize. During his interrogation, the wetland lizard man gathered the bodies pulled from the crimson muddy water into a small hill. Impressive. Although such bloody scenes are chilling, they no longer shake his heart. In this world, the weak have no right to survive. His gaze fixed on the tall pile of corpses, and his right hand slowly extended. It flowed out directly, eroding the pile of bodies in front of him. Red-tinted life essence was extracted and floated in the air, gathering into a river. The crimson energy slowly spread out like a river, flowing into the bodies of the wetland lizard men around him. Their muscles became thicker, their bones stronger, and their tendons grew tougher. Their amber eyes looked at Lurels with renewed heat and madness. They turned into a mess of debris submerged in crimson muddy water. Lurels looked at a nearby wetland lizard man with some curiosity. Potential 1-star evolution progress 50%. The level cap might increase as well. In other words, with just over 3,000 more, they can transform. Lurels felt very pleased. Even with just a little power, they are already extraordinary. Unfortunately, the current potential limit for improvement is only 2 stars. After calming his mind, Lurels had the wetland lizard search around, especially the escape route used by the rat people. He could only mark this location on the magic map and explore it later. All these things feel mysterious, making him eager to explore further. The winding trail passed through wetlands, mudflats, trees, and bushes. Lurels waved his hand, indicating they should go to the far left. Even if it was unreasonable, no one would question him. The dragon droppings cleared away most dangers and their speed increased. But suddenly Lurels waved sharply, stopping everyone. Destroy the dragon droppings immediately. Bane at the back did not hesitate and quickly poured a large amount of clean water into a clay basin. The dragon's presence was gone. Looking up, a terrifying creature with a wingspan over 20 meters resembling an ancient giant beast was soaring through the sky. It was a massive flying dragon with sturdy legs. Its gray scales looked like the bark of an ancient tree, rugged and tough, giving a strong sense of resilience. Flying dragon with 2 legs level. The limit for 4-star potential is level 15. It has broken the limit. Just a glance from afar makes him feel the soul-penetrating pressure. The swamp people tremble. In the blink of an eye, the terrifying flying dragon disappears without a trace. They are still immersed in that terrifying pressure. After entering the swamp, his perception enhanced by the divine essence is amplified tenfold. If this flying dragon finds out, it could bring great danger in an instant. In this dangerous wilderness, no one knows when the next threat might appear. Flying dragon Lurels will make you kneel before him sooner or later. Re-wet the dragon droppings. With these 2 encounters, everyone's caution reaches its highest point. Now 5 teams of marsh lizard men exploring ahead. Exploring and scouting are instinctive for them. They haven't faced any obstacles along the way. Bane sensed his mood and quietly said, "Master, this 2-legged flying dragon has very pure bloodline. Its aura is not weaker than that of a mature dragon. The creatures in this swamp are likely hiding now or have temporarily fled, but within half a day, they will come back one after another. Are you very familiar with 2-legged flying dragons?" Bane's eyes showed some memories. They once had a young 2-legged flying dragon. Who can understand the frustration and helplessness of having a treasure but lacking the strength to control it? Luck was on their side, but their strength was lacking. They will come again in the future. They wanted to reach the destination before the flying dragon's power faded. The pace suddenly quickening, all kinds of complex terrain appeared. He did not get lost or need to turn back. Bane watched from behind, his eyes growing more eager. They kept moving without stopping, and after crossing a muddy, grassy path, their view suddenly opened up. In the center, a few sparse trees grew. The lush, lively scene gave a peaceful feeling. At this moment, everyone became excited. While everyone was excited, he calmly approached Lurels and stood beside him. "Master, those are not just trees." The gray tree trunks were rugged and uneven, covered in large patches of moss. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, but when sensing them more deeply, it was clear these trees had a lively, burning vitality, like a blazing fire. Potential 3 stars. Race talent. Rooted in the ground. Constantly absorbing earth energy to recover. Uses roots to trap enemies with a paralyzing effect. Evaluation. A 3-star potential level 9 swamp tree people. Paga's gaze was firm. Whether facing tree people or dragons, Lurels slowly shook his head. If they want to fight them directly, the cost will be very high. "Come with him," he spoke and slowly stepped forward. His eyes fixed on these towering trees over 15 meters tall. Swamp tree people have a deadly flaw. Though they lose mobility, they gain incredible strength for close combat. Fighting the tree person, a branch thicker than the steering wheel swept down, almost crushing the wetland lizard man instantly. Leaves fell, revealing ugly faces on the thick, moss-covered gray trunk. "Strangers, this is not your place." The ancient trance spoke. So even without understanding the words, one could grasp its meaning through mental communication. Lurels stared at the tree person in front. Outsider's trance, this is the domain of the ruler. The slow-tempered tree person immediately got angry at these words. Suddenly, an indescribable, overwhelming pressure surged from the human boy in front. This was the divine power's residual might, unable to escape, forced to endure the divine authority. Relying solely on pressure to sweep through the swamp was unrealistic. But the situation was different now. They had to endure the divine authority of the swamp god. The opponent could move and escape this area, avoiding the divine might. 12 swamp trants immediately felt their souls tremble, eager to kneel and bow before the person in front. No, you demon, do not think you can enslave their souls. Sizzle. The ground suddenly shattered with countless root-like tendrils as sharp as steel whips, tearing through the earth, wildly dancing like fierce dragons. This terrifying scene did not change Lurels' expression. To control the opponent through domination, one must completely subdue them. Within a 30 meters radius was the area covered by the swamp tree roots. He continuously poured mental energy into the dark blue divine essence, unleashing a stronger divine might. It surged freely, pressing down on the swamp tree man's soul. This made the swamp tree man panic. Submit or be destroyed. No demon, you will never enslave them. The fiery life force of these stubborn tree men began to fade. Maintaining the divine might for so long was a huge drain on him. Whoever could not hold on would be out. The timing, the environment, and the people all favored him. The tree man at the front felt his soul cracking with large fissures appearing. His branches slowly drooped, and his face on the trunk showed a hint of fear. They obeyed in spirit and blood. His mental energies surged out easily, imprinting his mark within their souls. A slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. These 12 tree people immediately became the first guards of the territory. Haggis, who was nearby and witnessed everything, trembled with emotion. There was no need for battle. Bane was also very excited. Lurels ignored the thoughts of the crowd and looked at the cart. Build the territory around this place. Confirm the terrain and plan the future buildings of the territory. Bane nodded excitedly, but then hesitated as if he remembered something. Lurels said meaningfully, "City of the first dew?" Then his eyes became very excited. But soon the first war of the gods broke out and the god of the swamp fell. The next swamp god never rebuilt the sacred swamp city. This name is very meaningful. Reforge the broken sword. Lurels nodded slightly but said nothing more. The roots of these large trees had already been buried back into the ground, leaving only a mess on the grass. Is there any enemy nearby that could threaten them? Number unknown. A foul-smelling giant beast, a two-headed ogre. How strong are they? The two-headed ogre arrived 3 months ago with an average level of 10. Surviving in the swamp means there are no weak creatures. After asking for a while, the swamp tree people could not provide more information. They can only wait passively for others to approach. As for the others, he can only explore them himself. Plus 200 level 6 wetland lizard men soldiers wearing heavy armor, there was no need to be overly worried. They began unloading. Watching the busy crowd, Lurels felt strangely moved. That feeling was quite strange. But this feeling could not be matched by any game. After reaching the center of the muddy swamp, walked 10 kilometers southeast to find a starry vine. 2 stars. Their average level is 8 with the highest at level 10, numbering over 500. Beneath the territory of the decayed centaurs, a level 1 magic plant called Blue Heart Mud Fruit grows. Besides the foul-smelling giant and the two-headed ogre mentioned by the swamp tree people, the decayed centaurs 30 kilometers north also need caution. During his thinking, his gaze shifted to the third piece of information southeast, 10 kilometers away, the starry vine. Lurels asked Bane about the star vine. The most powerful marsh city, swamp city, was built using starry vines. He hesitated a bit. If they can find the starry vine, could you use it? Bane's eyes lit up when he heard this. He pounded his chest to promise. That was the starry vine. Swamp City. Leave 5 small teams and swamp tree people to guard the supplies. Yes, Lord. 15 small teams assembled, and Lurels did not stay long. He was greatly freed from worry. Lurels walked through the damp swamp. His perception was also greatly expanded. The range reached 300 meters. The swamp was his home ground. His gaze fixed on a patch of reeds about 100 meters ahead, half as tall as a person swaying in the breeze. There may be enemies hiding in the reeds. They gathered around him. A group of ugly creatures about 1.5 meters tall emerged from the reeds, glaring fiercely. The body is covered in slimy, sticky mucus that smells strongly of fish, making people feel sick. Halfish creature level 5. Slimy mucus. Slimy fish spear. Mucus sticks to the weapon, causing it to stick and slow enemies when attacking. A common creature in the swamp. Lurels' eyes looked unfriendly. What kind of stray animals are daring to ambush here? Haggis led the charge, rushing forward. Blood dyed his body red, making this swamp lizard hero even more ferocious. Fearless of pain, fighting to the death. After tasting blood, his size increases by 20% and his strength by 40%. Normal swamp lizard men are not as fierce in combat, but they are also killing half-fish creatures. The lizard's spear strikes its belly hard but crack. It only leaves a white mark on its armor. The half-fish creature's back shows a bloody claw. The killing efficiency is not much slower than that of a level 3 Kier rat. With their fierce crushing power, they immediately show a fierce side. One by one, the half-mermaids are killed, and the number of squads drops rapidly. These swamp monsters finally collapse. They tremble as they drop their weapons and turn to run away. The fierce wetland lizard men begin their final cleanup. The sound of blades piercing flesh and bones tearing apart echoes through the sky. All 5 level 4 half-mermaids from the 4 squads are slaughtered. About 30 in total, and none seriously. Clearly they had fought too fiercely. Gather everything together. The wetland lizard men, having experienced similar battles before, become excited immediately. Lurels smiles and does not waste words. Red life energy floats up from the broken bodies of the half-mermaids and flows into the wetland lizard men nearby. He is one step closer to breaking his limit and evolving into a 2-star potential. Compared to level 3, Ratman level 5 half-mermaids provide more life energy. Future battles and hunts will become even more enjoyable. Seeing this, Lurels did not waste any more time and continued forward. The green water weeds stretch out long tendrils with small, pure white flowers growing at the top, floating on the water surface. A gentle breeze blows, causing the white flowers to sway and emit a fresh scent. At this moment, the marsh lizard man ahead lets out a surprised cry. That surprised cry became the first warning of the territory Lurels had finally begun to claim.